Okay, so in the previous video, we had done about the legislative powers, the executive powers, and the judicial powers of the president. Now I move on to my next question, that is financial powers of the President of India. Give the financial powers. First point, a money bill is introduced only on the recommendation of the President. Money bill is introduced only on the recommendation of the President. Second point, the annual financial statements, they contain the receipt and expenditure of the government for the coming year. The annual financial statements, they contain the receipt and expenditure of the government for the coming year. First point I told you, money bill is introduced only at the recommendation of the President. Second point, the annual financial statements contains the receipt and expenditure of the government for the coming year. Third point, the annual financial statements are laid before the Parliament at the beginning of the before the beginning of the financial year. The annual financial statements are laid in the Parliament before the beginning of the financial year. Financial year 1st April it starts. Before that only it is tabled in the Parliament. It is tabled in the Parliament by the Finance Minister on the advice of the President or on behalf of the President. I finished 3 points of the financial powers. First point, money bill is introduced. Money bill is introduced in the Parliament only on the recommendation of the President. First point, very simple. Second, the annual financial statements, what does it contains? The receipt and the expenditure of the government for the coming year. Third point, the annual financial statements are laid in the Parliament before the beginning of a financial year. Now, who lays this financial statement in the Parliament? It is laid by the Finance Minister on behalf of the President. Fourth point, President can order withdrawal of funds from the contingency fund of India. President can order the withdrawal of funds from the contingency fund of India to meet unforeseen expenditure. Unforeseen, there are some expenditure which happens which are not under your control. In that case, you can withdraw the money from the contingency fund of India. And lastly, the President appoints a Finance Commission every 5 years. The Finance Commission comprises of a chairman and 4 other members. Every 5 years, President appoints a Finance Commission, and the Finance Commission comprises of a President and 4 other members. Is that very clear? So these are the 5 points in the financial powers of the President. One more time. First point, money bill is laid only on the recommendation of the President. Second point, the annual financial statement, what does it contains? Receipt and expenditure of the government for the coming year. Third point, the annual financial statements are laid in the Parliament before the beginning of the financial year. They are laid down by the Finance Minister on the recommendation of or on behalf of the President. Fourth point, the President can order withdrawal of funds from where? From the contingency fund of India to meet unforeseen expenditure. And fifth point, the President appoints a Finance Commission every 5 years which comprises of a chairman and 4 other members. So these are the 5 financial powers of the President. Now, the next one, we have the discretionary powers of the President. Very, very important. Short question. Define discretionary powers and give the circumstances when discretionary powers are executed by the President or exercised by the President. First of all, the definition of the discretionary powers. There are certain gray areas. Where President has to use his own wisdom and judgment. There are certain gray areas where the President has to use his own wisdom and judgment. That is called as discretionary powers. I write a definition. There are certain gray areas where President has to use his own wisdom and judgment. It has asked in the boards for 1 mark also. Define discretionary powers. Your answer, there are certain gray areas where the president has to use his own wisdom and judgment, is called as discretionary powers. Now, when does the president exercises his discretionary powers? First point, during elections, if no party gets majority, elections have happened and no party has got majority. During elections, if no party gets a clear majority in the house, then in that case or in that circumstance, what happens? There is a hung parliament. Elections have happened and no party has got a clear majority. Okay? Then the situation is called as hung parliament. In this scenario, the president cannot take the advice of the outgoing prime minister who has already lost the support of the people. President cannot take the advice of the outgoing prime minister who's already lost the support of the people. So, president will use his own discretionary power to appoint a new prime minister. So, very simple. Elections had happened. No party got a clear majority. So, it is called as what? Hung parliament. When no party gets a clear majority in a parliament, in elections, it is called as hung parliament. Now, can the president take the advice of the outgoing prime minister? Agar outgoing prime minister itna hi acha hota, people would have re-elected him. So, he cannot take the advice from the outgoing prime minister who's already lost the support of the people. So, in this case, the president will use his own discretionary power and appoint a prime minister. That's the first circumstance. Second circumstance, the prime minister of the country has got assassinated. Assassinated means what? Killed. If the prime minister of the country gets assassinated and it is not possible for the incumbent party to appoint a new prime minister, prime minister has got assassinated, he's been killed, and it is not possible for the incumbent party, uski party cannot appoint a new prime minister, then in such case a new prime minister will be appointed by the president. Example, Indira Gandhi's assassination. When Indira Gandhi was killed, the ruling party could not appoint a new prime minister in her place. So that time the president had intervened and appointed a new prime minister. Third point, if a vote of no confidence is passed against the party, if a vote of no confidence is passed against the party and the party is unable to prove its majority in the house, then the president will order for dissolution of the Lok Sabha. If a vote of no confidence is passed against a party in the house and the party is unable to prove its majority in the house, then the Lok Sabha will be dissolved by the president. And fourth point, a vote of no confidence has been passed against a minister, but the minister refuses to resign. Vote of no confidence has been passed against the minister and the minister refuses to resign. Then it is basically called as the president will intervene and basically he will be removed from the office. Third and fourth point, they both are different, very, very important. Third point says that vote of no confidence has been passed against a party in the house and the party is unable to prove its majority. Then president can declare the dissolution of the Lok Sabha. And fourth point says vote of no confidence has been passed against a member or against a minister, but the minister refuses to resign. So these are the four circumstances when the president has to use his discretionary power. So let's do in short. The first case was in case of hung parliament. First case is in case of hung parliament. What is hung parliament? When no party gets a clear majority. Okay? In that case, the president cannot take the advice of the outgoing prime minister who's already lost the support of the people. Second point was assassination of the prime minister and the incumbent party is unable to appoint a new prime minister. Third point was vote of no confidence against a party and the party is unable to prove its majority in the house, then president can dissolve the Lok Sabha. And the fourth point, vote of no confidence against a minister and the minister refuses to resign. So these are the circumstances when the president will use his own discretionary powers. So there are certain gray areas where the president has to use his own wisdom and judgment. Okay? And so these are the cases. One is hung parliament, second assassination of the prime minister, third one vote of no confidence against a party, and fourth point vote of no confidence against a minister. There are no captions given in the textbook. You can make your own captions also. So we finished with the financial powers, we finished with the discretionary power. Discretionary power, short question. Now we move on to emergencies. There are three emergencies. In the entire emergency part, we only have the meanings. According to the scope, we only have the meanings. So, emergency mein first emergency is national or general emergency. National or general emergency. What is this national or general emergency? If the President of India feels that the country is endangered by, if the President of India feels that the country is endangered by war or external aggression or internal armed rebellion is threatening the country. I repeat, if the President feels that country is endangered by war or external aggression or internal armed rebellion. External aggression means foreign country attacking your country. Internal armed rebellion means within the country only there are wars, there are fights. So, if the President of India is convinced that the country is endangered by war or external aggression or internal armed rebellion is threatening the country, then in that case he can declare national or general emergency. This answer you will learn from the circumstances paragraph. National emergency, you go into national emergency, circumstances ka paragraph, that's the answer. Second one, we have breakdown of constitutional machinery. Breakdown of constitutional machinery. This is also called as President's rule, also called as state emergency. Three questions for this particular answer, very, very important. What do you mean by breakdown of constitutional machinery, or when is President's rule imposed, or what is state emergency? Again, go to the circumstances paragraph. I repeat again, circumstances. Now, when does this happen? If the governor of the state, every state has a governor, if the governor of the state reports to the president, the governor of the state reports to the president that the state is not been run according to the provisions of the constitution. Governor of a state, he reports to the president. Governor of the state reports to the president that the state is not been run according to the provisions of the constitution. Then in that state, president's rule is imposed. Governor ने report लिखा किसको? President को, that the state is not been run according to the provisions of the constitutions. Then in that state, whose rule will come? President's rule will be imposed. So if you remember in the executive powers, control over state government during the president rule, that is the thing. Now you see, why it is called breakdown of constitutional machinery? Because the state has not been running according to the provisions of the constitution. Why it is called President's rule? Because here, now who will put up his rule? President. State का Chief Minister का नहीं चलेगा, President का ही चलेगा. And why it is called state emergency? Because it has happened in the state. And the third one we have financial emergency. Financial emergency. If the President of India feels that country's finances are in danger, he will declare financial emergency. Out of the three emergencies, it's the financial emergency which has never ever been declared in our country. Till now, financial emergency is never declared in our country. So when the country's finances are in danger, he will declare financial emergency. So three types of emergencies for 3 marks. One more time. What is national emergency or general emergency? If the president feels that a country is endangered by war or external aggression or internal armed rebellion is threatening the country, then in that case he can declare national or general emergency. What is breakdown of constitutional machinery? If the governor of the state reports to the president that the state has not been run according to the provisions of the constitutions, then he can declare state emergency. Third one, financial emergency. If the country's finances are in danger, the president shall declare financial emergency for the same. So 3 points, 3 emergencies. Now we move on to the next one. The next one we have about vice president now. President is over, now we come to vice president. What are the qualifications to be the vice president of India? First point, he or she should be a citizen of India. Vice president we are doing, he or she should be a citizen of India. Second point, he or she should have completed 35 years of age. He or she should have completed 35 years of age. Third point, he or she should be qualified to be a member of Rajya Sabha. President when you did, he or she should be qualified to be a member of Lok Sabha. Here you write, he or she should be qualified to be a member of Rajya Sabha. Is that very clear? And fourth point, he or she should not hold any office of profit under the government. He or she should not hold any office of profit under the government. 4 points I said till now. First point, he or she should be a citizen of India. Second point, he or she should have completed 35 years of age. Third point, he or she should be qualified to be a member of Rajya Sabha. And fourth point, he or she should not hold any office of profit under the government. Now, if they ask you a question, give one difference in the qualification of president and vice president. Qualification of president and vice president, one difference. Don't get confused writing president का 35 years और इसका 30 years. दोनों का 35 ही है. The difference is only one. President should be qualified to be a member of Lok Sabha and vice president should be qualified to be a member of Rajya Sabha. Is that very clear? That's the difference. Very, very important question for 1 mark. Give one difference in the election, in the qualifications of president and vice president. That will be your answer. So qualifications of vice president are over. Now, how is the vice president elected? Again, he is elected by the electoral college. He is elected indirectly by the electoral college. Now, what is the composition of the electoral college? The electoral college comprises of both the houses of the parliament. यहाँ पे you will not write state legislative assembly. The electoral college comprises of both the houses of the parliament. Is that very clear? And it is done by means of single transferable vote. It is done by means of single transferable vote. Clear? So this is how the vice president is elected. Elected by the electoral college. It includes only both the houses of the parliament by means of single transferable vote. Further, the next one is, what is the tenure of the vice president? Same, 5 years. Who gives oath to the vice president? So now your answer will be president. Who had given oath to the president? Chief Justice. Who will give oath to the vice president? The president. Can the vice president resign before its term? Yes, he can resign before the term of 5 years and he will give the resignation letter to whom? to the president. He will give the resignation letter to the president and then present to the Rajya Sabha's chairman. Is that clear? Same way, can the vice president be impeached? Yes, he can be removed from his office for violation of the constitution. And the procedure will remain the same what we had done for president. यहाँ पे procedure is not given, but the procedure of impeachment of president and vice president is the same. Let's do that once. First thing, within 14 days, 1/4 of the members should sign a resolution. Then it goes in either house of the parliament where it should be passed by 2/3 members who are present and voting. Then it goes to the other house. Other house may again there will be what? There will be investigation and the vice president will be given a chance to defend. If there also it is passed by 2/3 majority, then he stands to be removed. So it's the same answer for that. And now coming to the last answer, functions of the vice president. Give the functions of the vice president. This answer has come in boards many times. Functions of vice president. First point, ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. The vice president is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So he discusses or he presides over the meetings in the Rajya Sabha. He maintains discipline and decorum in the Rajya Sabha. He allows questions and supplementary questions in the Rajya Sabha. So everything what the speaker does in the Lok Sabha, the vice president who is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha does in the Rajya Sabha. One more thing, the vice president does not earn a salary on the post of vice president. He gets salary because he is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Is that very clear? So he is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. He discusses the bills in the house. He maintains peace and decorum in the house. He allows questions and supplementary questions in the house. All of those things will be maintained. Understand again, he does not earn a salary because he is a vice president, but he earns a salary because he is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And second function, taking over as president. Taking over as president. Now, when does the vice president take over as a president? First one, death of president, resignation of president, illness of the president, retirement of the president. So death, resignation, illness or retirement of the president, and till the time the new president is not appointed, the vice president will act as the president. Till the time new president is not appointed, the vice president will act like a president. So these are the two functions of the vice president. First one, he is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha, and second, taking over as a president. Is that very clear? Now, you need to know the names. Who is our current president? Who is our current president? Ramnath Kovind is our current president. Picture is given in the textbook. You should know by the picture also. Who is our current vice president? Venkaiah Naidu is our current vice president. Is that very clear? President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu. So the Vice President has got these two functions. This is what all you have in your chapter number 2. Is that very clear? So entire chapter number 2 is been covered. Please watch it along with your textbook carefully. Thank you very much.